Hello and welcome to another episode of The Nice Knit. Today's episode is not sponsored, but it is brought to you by the Knit and Crochet brand of yarn because almost everything that I'm going to show you today is knit and crochet. I definitely went to the end of, or like the closing business sale at Joann's and picked up a bunch of yarn, and now I'm finally getting to knit with it. So I think there's only one item I'm going to show you today that is not a knit and crochet yarn. And funnily enough, was inspired by a type of knit and crochet yarn, and I went to this yarn because it was very similar. So very funny. I wouldn't say it's my favorite brand of yarn, but I did really like it. It was my favorite brand of yarn at Joann's. We'll say that. So let's just dive right in. I am going to start with my finished objects first today. So the first thing that I finished this past week since the last podcast episode is a pair of socks. These socks are knitted with the Knit and Crochet brand product Sock Star. It is 75% superwash wool, 25% polyamide, and it is in the colorway Carnival Splash Stripe. So this is what I knitted it. This is what I knitted it with, knitted it in using, and this is what it created. And I did not match the stripe pattern. I kind of like the idea that they're just like these kooky socks. I used the One Sock by Kate Atherley to make this, which is what I use. It's pretty much the only sock pattern that it is the only sock pattern that I've gotten all the way through, mostly because of my own tension issues with the yarn, using other patterns that have smaller needles. But I am really excited about these. My only error that I would change if I could is that I knit them a size smaller than what I actually needed to knit them in. I don't know, I got confused when I was picking the size, and I actually went with the size smaller than what I usually knit with, but since they're socks, I can still get them on my feet. It's gonna be okay. So you can see I have not woven in my ends yet. These have actually not been blocked yet. Once I block them, I will then weave in my ends. But I'm waiting for a couple other whips to get done, and I have a few finished objects, or at least one finished object that I also need to block, and then a whip that I want to block halfway through to make sure that the neck is going to stretch out. So I'll probably just block these and those items all at the same time. I don't desperately need to wear these socks, so I'm okay waiting for a little bit. But yeah, these are my Carnival Stripe Splash socks, knit and crochet, using the One Sock pattern by Kate Atherley. But yeah, finished object number one. And I'm calling it finished even though the ends aren't woven in, but there's only 2 ends to weave in. So it's not like it's gonna take, 2 per sock. So there's 4 ends to weave in. It's not gonna take long. My second finished object is what I'm wearing. So last podcast episode, I had finished my gray sweater. This podcast episode, I finished a t-shirt. So this is my Gulf side tee. And I'm gonna back up. Hopefully the framing will still be okay. But actually, I'm gonna pause and we'll see. Okay, the framing is good enough. I might be cutting off my head, but that's not the important part here. This is my Gulf side tee. This is knit with Knit and Crochet. I have a ball of it here. Essential cotton. So this is 100% cotton, and it is a super soft cotton, and it's in the color Gulf side. So that's that. I used about 2.5 balls of this to make this sweater. And this is a self-drafted sweater or self-drafted t-shirt. I used the count of stitches based on the Monday Sweater Junior pattern, and then I improvised from there. So I started with like that, helping me determine how big my neck needed to be and how many stitches I needed to cast on for that, using the Monday Sweater Junior pattern and some math. And then I did just your standard short row shaping, and then I just knitted it as normal. I'm gonna just do a little twirl for you. I really love the way this fits. Like it is the best fitting garment that I've made yet, which is kind of cool. That means I'm making progress on understanding how to fit a garment to my body. The only thing that I would change about this sweater, if I was re-knitting it, would be to not knit this collar folded over. I did not realize how crisp and clean this single ribbing would be without folding it over. And so I I didn't know because I didn't know that I didn't knit this or the hemline until the very end. But if I make this again, hint, I will not do a folded over collar. Everything else is perfect. There's nothing else that I would change in this other than that. And this even isn't a bad thing. Like, I still like it with this folded over collar, mostly because it is super comfortable. I love a good folded over collar because they are so soft and squishy and comfortable. And I really like the way this sits on my neck. Like, this is the most comfortable neckline that I have knitted yet. And so now I think I'm gonna knit a lot of my sweaters with this wide of a neckline. Any wider, and I feel like I can't wear a sports bra underneath it because then you can really see the straps, which I usually don't care about except for when I'm at work and I wanna wear this at work. And any like tighter, it kind of feels like it's choking me just a little bit. But this sits perfectly on my neck. I wore this all day yesterday. It is a little warm because it's a pretty thick cotton. I believe it's a worsted weight cotton, maybe DK. It's a 3, so it's probably a DK weight cotton. And I knit it on size 5 needles, or no, not size 5 needles, 5mm needles. And you know what? What was really cool was I sweated a lot and it never, like it did not show that I was sweating, which is really exciting because I sweat a lot when I teach and I really don't want pit stains while I'm teaching. The only thing about this sweater that makes it a little limited to use when I'm teaching, Jesus, is that when I raise my arms, the shirt raises too. And I don't know at what point you can see this, but when I raise my arms, because I knit the armpits so low, the arm raises. But that was an intentional design element because I sweat so much. I don't like it when armpits are near my armpit. Like, I don't want this armpit of the garment to be up near my armpit. I'm pretty sure there's like a sewing term for what this part of the shirt is. So I intentionally knitted it longer so that I would have plenty of clearance between the bottom of the shirt and my actual armpit, knowing that that means that when I raise my arm, the whole shirt is going to go up with it. I want to say this is like the arm gusset or something like that. I don't know. Let me know if you know. But that was an intentional design element. And I knew that was going to limit a little bit of, when I can wear this when I'm teaching, because if I'm going to be writing on the board with my hand way up in the air, I don't want to wear this without something underneath it because I don't want to show my stomach off to all my students or my back off to all my students. But when I'm not teaching or if I'm not doing a lecture where I need to write on the board, this is going to be perfect. And this is the cut that I really like to wear with my jeans because I love the way where it hits me on my more high-waisted jeans. So honestly, the only thing that I would make adjustments to is the neckline, and that is purely like once I got it done, I was like, oh, that would look good with a single neckline instead of a folded collar, or a non-folded collar, whatever you want to call that, just a flat collar. But I also think it looks good with the folded over, so that's something you don't know until or at least I didn't know until I knit the whole thing and knit the ribbing. I actually use the Italian bind off on all of my ends. Now that I know how to do an Italian bind off, and I don't have to look it up every time I need to do it, I kind of like it. It's a little meditative, just like going through the motions. So I might be converted. That might be my new bind off. I have not tried it on a garment that is only like stockinette fabric and not ribbed. I'm sure you can still do it, but you have to do it differently because it's all knit instead of knit and purl. But that's a problem for future Laramie to figure out. But that is my 2 finished objects, which is very exciting. And that kind of leads me into my 2 works in progress. And I have another one, but the reason I'm saying 2 will come clear in a minute. The first is that I'm knitting another pair of the One Sock by Kate Atherley in another knit and crochet yarn. I am doing some modifications. I'm knitting these in a larger size, like even too large for me. So I'm knitting them with the thoughts of giving them to a friend or to my family. Let's see, we got this. Again, not matching. the pattern. So I'm knitting these in a larger size, I said that, but I'm also knitting them shorter. So they're gonna be more like high ankle socks rather than like higher socks. I don't actually, I know there's a term for the sock that goes like halfway up your leg. Anyway, so I'm knitting this with, again, K&C Sock Star, and this is in the colorway Dragon Fruit Splash Stripe. So that's what this looks like. And it should look a little bit like dragon fruit if I'm remembering like the picture that I saw online correctly, where it's got the white will have black specks throughout it like a dragon fruit when you open it up. But yeah, this is all the farther I've gotten. I've gotten through the cuff. We're now working on just the leg portion. And I have no goals of when to get this done. I've got a spare set of circulars hanging out. But yeah, that's what I'm doing with those. So just the same thing that I did with these, except shorter and in a bigger size. So that's fun. I'm now back on my sock knitting thing. I like sock knitting again. The next work in progress is another one of these t-shirts. So I could not control myself as soon as I finished it at 1 a.m. on Wednesday night. So it would be Tuesday morning, or Thursday. It would be 1 a.m. on Thursday morning. Thursday night, today is Friday, Thursday night, I cast onto another one of those sweaters. And I have gone through, yarn's running away. I got the neckline, which I did do a single, I didn't fold it over. And I have gotten through all of the short row shaping and am now just on the raglan increases. And it should fit roughly similar to the way this does, hopefully. However, I am using 100% merino yarn. So this is Knit and Crochet, and this is their Essential Wool 100% superwash merino fine wool. This is actually a worsted weight, so it is a heavier weight than this. But I took that into account, but I didn't really make any changes because I think it'll be okay if it relaxes a little bit, but I'm still knitting it with the same size of needles. Let's see. Is there anything else you need to know about this? I don't think so. So I'm knitting it in this color. It's bright white. This is the color. And I should have just enough to do this t-shirt. But yeah, that's what it looks like so far. Again, did not fold over the collar, but everything else I'm gonna knit it exactly the same. I am probably going to, so linear storytelling is not my strong suit, but this sweater has actually not been blocked. It is 100% cotton, so I don't expect a whole lot of change when I wash it in cold water. I'm just gonna hand wash it in cold water, lay flat to dry. I don't expect a whole lot of change because it's cotton. If anything, it'll kind of shrink back up to itself where it has stretched out in wearing, but I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of change. And hopefully that is a correct assumption. This being 100% superwash wool means it's going to stretch. And more than stretching this way, it's going to stretch lengthwise. So what I'm probably going to do is, and it may stretch less than my alpaca garments, which I would give like 2 inches of stretch to. I'm probably going to knit this in the armpit about 1 inch shorter than where I have here, or maybe ½ an inch shorter. But I'm gonna go shorter so that it has a little bit of room to stretch. And I may block it in the middle of this process to make sure that I don't end up with armpits that are like as low as my belly button, because I don't want. I just want it far enough that it's not gonna be up in my armpit. So we'll see how that goes. I will have to make some adjustments to that just because I anticipate that this will stretch a lot more. You may be asking, Laramie, did you do a gauge swatch? No, Laramie did not do a gauge swatch. She decided to wing it because, to be honest, maybe I'm doing gauge swatches wrong, but my gauge swatches never behave the same way as the fabric does in the garment. And I don't want to have to knit like this giant gauge swatch that has weight to it just to figure out how much it's going to stretch. That's almost pointless to me with that much. It's not pointless, but with that much effort into a gauge swatch, and it's probably still not going to behave the same way that a garment does on your body. And then a garment does when you're washing it, you're getting it wet, and it has all that weight to it. So what I've decided to do from now on, barring like trying to figure out what fabric I kind of like, I'm probably going to skip gauge swatching for now. There may be a few things that I do gauge swatch. Like I gauge swatched Mom's sweater that I'm going to show you here in a second, mostly because I was just curious if it would stretch at all, and if I like pulled on it at all, how much it would loosen up. And I was also curious more so what the fabric would look like, because I wanted a specific fabric feel for her sweater. And I can get an idea of that with a gauge swatch, but when it comes to how it'll relax and stretch and behave in blocking, I don't feel like, at least my gauge swatches are not super useful for that. If you love gauge swatching and swear by gauge swatching, more power to you. I'm really happy for you. I wish it would work out for me, but I have yet to make a gauge swatch, and I've even made some big ones. I have yet to make a gauge swatch that has the same gauge as the garment that I knit at the end. And that is trying to do it in the round. For Mom's, I did the gauge, I literally made like a cuff of a sleeve as part of my gauge swatch so that I was still knitting in the round. And it still is just off from what my gauge is on Mom's sweater. It's not a big deal because that's not why I knit that gauge swatch. I actually knitted it to figure out the fabric, but it's just something that I have to keep in mind. So if you have any tips or advice for me on how you gauge swatch in a way that works for you, that actually ends up matching what your final garment is really going to look like, I would love to hear it, because I like the idea of knowing what that would be before I get started. But for now, I'm just going to make estimates, lean on faith, and block halfway through if I need to. So the good thing is it's pretty forgiving. I don't mind a little bit of an oversized fit or a little bit of a tighter fit, as long as it's not up in my armpit. And so I'm flexible in that way, where even if I don't meet the gauge, even if it's a little different than what I had originally started with or thought I was going to have, I'm usually okay with it. And sometimes it actually works out in my favor. It hasn't burned me yet, so we'll see. But this is what we got. And then my final work in progress is Mom's sweater. And honestly, there's not a whole lot to say here. This is the only not knit and crochet yarn. This is Drops Air that I'm using for her sweater. But I did pick out this yarn because of the Knit and Crochet Cloud Paca. This is very similar to that. And I used a color of this yarn, I think it was yellow, in my cotton candy sweater, because I could not get a yellow in the Cloud Paca because they stopped production on it by the time that I had picked it up for that sweater. And I realized that I really liked it. It feels just the same as that Cloud Paca does, or at least very similar. And so that's why I got this. So even though it's not Knit and Crochet, it's still brought to you by the Knit and Crochet brand. And so yeah, I haven't gotten a whole lot of progress done on this. I have been just knitting slowly in the round. There's a lot of stitches on this needle, so one round takes a good chunk of time, but we're getting there. We're just gonna keep, every couple of days, add a couple inches to this, and we'll get it done. Yeah, I may do this first though. Sorry, Mom. But I may make this first so that I can, because I need a white sweater, or an off-white, I guess this is called bright white. I need a bright white sweater or t-shirt to wear to work. It's something that I've been missing in my closet. So I may try to get this done before I go back to work, and then I will crank this out before it gets really cold so I can give it to Mom. But yeah, that is that. That's all I have for you today. Not a whole lot of other updates. I am still trying to get all of my works in progress that I identified in an earlier, was it the last one? It was a bonus episode that I posted, or a bonus video I posted on Wednesday. And I can't remember if it was this past Wednesday or the Wednesday before, but I will link it above and in the description box below. But basically I went through, I identified works in progress as like frog, finish, or forget. Forget being, I'm not going to work on them for now, but I'm not going to destroy them or unravel them. And so my goal was to get all of the like finish by August 18th garments and items knitted by August 18th. so that I don't have to worry about them once I go back to school, and some of them so I can have for when I go back to school. Anyways, all that to say, I am still working on those. I do a little bit on each of them, or I pick one and I do a little bit on it every single day. I probably won't include a lot of that in these podcast episodes just because I am actually filming that for a video as well. It may not see the light of day, but hopefully it will. I'm not very good with these like long-term filming projects. I kind of forget that I'm supposed to film and then I just never do. But hopefully that'll be on there. I will show you those objects as I finish them on the podcast, but keep an eye out for that video if you want to see the process of me finishing all of those. But I'm going to let you go. I hope you have an amazing day. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a like. Subscribe if you want to hang out a little bit more, and I will see you hopefully in the next one. Bye! In progress, a few I need to stop the ums. This works. What are you barking at? You see somebody trespassing? How rude. Who are you seeing? Is it the mailman? Oh no, it's just the neighbors. They can walk on the opposite side of the street, bud. But thank you for saving us. Theo, what are you doing, bubby? All right, what was I saying?